GGG have posted some more information for patch 3.26, including item filter info and a post that they're planning to release the 2020 gem information Thursday New Zealand time, which means we should be getting that post tonight if all goes as planned. And they also mentioned that the Sanctum changes will be published too if they're ready to go. Now, in the Mercenaries of Trarthus League, we'll have access to a new set of skill gems called Trarthus Gems. They're essentially just a different name for new transfigured gems, but the key difference there is that they are only obtainable by defeating mercenary NPCs in combat, and you cannot receive them as a reward from the Divine Font in the Labyrinth like you can with other transfigured gems. So with the item filter post we received yesterday, we actually got a full list of the new Trarthus Gems by name. There's 11 of them in total. Now, we already know about a few of these gems, so let's go over those, and I'll give my thoughts on each of them. Heavy Strike of Trarthus is one of the gems we didn't get to see in action. However, based on the revealed gem info, this one will play identically to the normal Heavy Strike gem, because the changes compared to the original gem are only numerical, aside from the fact that the Trarthan version can only be used with a staff. So this is the same mana cost, the same attack speed multiplier and base damage as the normal gem, but that's where the similarities end. Heavy Strike of Trarthus has the modifier from the Crown of Eyes unique built into it. Increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attack damage from this skill at 150% of their value. It also has 2% chance to deal double damage per 10 intelligence. These are two very strong damage scaling modifiers built into this skill. However, what we don't know right now is what the quality stat does on this one, because the quality stat on normal Heavy Strike is extremely powerful, providing 20% chance to deal double damage at 20% quality. So without factoring in the unknown quality stat, Heavy Strike of Trarthus would need about 300 intelligence to break even on the chance to deal double damage compared to a normal 2020 Heavy Strike. Now, because of the existence of the Iron Will Keystone and the Pillar of the Caged God Staff, I think an interesting idea for this gem is a triple attribute stacker, making use of uniques such as Shaper's Touch and Cyclopean Coil, and possibly gaining their flat damage from the Bloodthirst support gem. This way, you'll be able to cap out on chance to deal double damage, and scale a huge amount of increased damage from Strength, and from the Cyclopean Coil and the Attribute Mastery. This is the type of build that you can sink ridiculous amounts of currency into, perfect for a second or third character in the league. Next up, we have the Spectral Shield Throw of Trarthus. For this one, we have the 2020 gem information already from the League Reveal page, and we also have some footage of it in action as well. So unlike the normal SST, the shield projectile will pierce all enemies in its path until it reaches its target destination, where it stops in place and begins unleashing projectiles in all directions. This is the shard projectile phase from the normal SST, which usually happens as the shield projectiles impact enemies. And you'll notice it releases a lot more projectiles, and that's because the normal SST will release shards for each enemy it hits in the chain, whereas this new Trarthan version of SST will only release shards once, at the target location. This new version of the gem has lower scaling from armor and evasion on the shield compared to the original gem, and it also has a higher attack time. So I'm not really sure what to make of this gem. From the footage, we can't really tell if the skill has any different mechanics in terms of projectile behaviour from the original gem outside of those mentioned in the skill information. And one of the biggest upsides to the normal SST is that it's a fantastic mapper. And this gem kind of looks like it's trying to do the same thing. You throw a shield into the middle of a pack and the shards do a good job of clearing. But I don't expect that the shards will be able to shotgun the same target, and therefore this is likely to be worse for single target and similar for mapping. Next up, we have Stormcall of Trarthus, which is a physical themed Stormcall. It actually has no lightning stats whatsoever. We don't get to see this one in action, but we do have an image from the press kit. So using Stormcall sets markers on the ground which will persist for a duration before being struck for damage, and when one marker gets struck, all other markers will also go off in quick succession, dealing their damage in their own area. Other than dealing pure physical damage, there's a few key differences compared to the normal Stormcall gem. Firstly, it has 50% more base cast time, a bit less damage effectiveness, and it costs life instead of mana. It also has a half-second longer base duration, which is the duration that you need to wait until a marker actually deals damage. But Stormcall of Trarthus has a secondary mechanic unlike the original gem, which leaves behind an area that deals damage over time, making it somewhat stronger at mapping, being able to clear stragglers more easily. However, Stormcall generally is not a good mapping skill, and adding in a ground dot component won't magically make this so. Now, being a physical damage spell, which also has a phys dot component, this one will be compared to Reap, which has a slightly higher cast time and lower hit and dot damage, but Reap has the blood charge mechanic to make it much stronger against single targets, potentially granting a giant damage boost, and with just a single blood charge up, Reap already begins to deal more hit and dot damage than the Trarthan version of Stormcall. Now, there would be some potential here to use both skills together, especially considering the Stormcall ground dot lasts a decently long time before needing to recast, so it can easily provide some extra damage against single targets. But then, Val Reap exists, which creates its own area of Boiling Blood, the same mechanic that's created by the Trarthan Stormcall gem, and areas of Boiling Blood do not stack. Val Reap's version of Boiling Blood deals considerably more damage, whilst also providing more blood charges too to make the normal Reap deal more damage. And overall, I'm just not sure that this gem will be very good at all, and I'm not sure what it excels at either. Okay, next up is Siege Ballista of Trarthus. Now this one is very interesting. So for this skill we have some footage of it in action, and we have the level 1 gem without quality. So I'm not really sure if we've ever seen a totem skill like this before. Siege Ballista of Trarthus will summon a bunch of totems at once in a ring with all of them pointing inwards towards the target location, and they'll each then fire once before all despawning at the same time. Now here's the thing, normally totems present this set and forget playstyle. You can move along throwing totems down as you go, they last for a duration or until you despawn them by summoning a new one beyond your maximum limit. And as you do this, any old totems behind you will naturally clear monsters before they are inevitably replaced by a new totem further along. Alternatively, totems are sometimes used as supplementary damage in some builds, once again making use of their duration-based nature. You can throw down a totem and it will continue to deal its damage while you're able to use other skills or move around. But for Siege Ballista of Trarthus, neither of these are true. This skill cannot reasonably be a supplementary damage skill, as it's almost immediately over after it's used, while it also doesn't provide the same set and forget playstyle as totems usually do. If the initial volley of attacks miss a target, there won't be another set of attacks to clean up until you cast again. So realistically, this must be the main skill you're using, and your damage is based on spamming this skill as you would do any other normal non-totem skill. But there's a few issues here. There are a couple of stats to take account of. Totem placement speed is one that you can control, and the attack speed of your totems is another to improve their fire rate once they begin the attack. But totems have an arming time, the time that it takes after they've been summoned before they actually begin their action of attacking or casting a spell. So to make the best use of this skill as a single target damage dealer, you need to perfectly balance your totem placement speed so that your totems have fired their attack before the next set are summoned, to avoid overwriting them before they've made their attack. Of course, you can scale the number of maximum summon totems that you have access to, but that rolls into another thing about this skill. It provides a large amount of maximum summon totems, which almost definitely scales with gem levels. I think both the maximum number of summon totems modifier and the amount of summon totems will scale with gem levels, and that's because we have this image right here which showcases this skill in action with 8 summoned ballistas at once. And because this is so many totems, it will be hard to get enough maximum totems to the point where if you have enough totem placement speed, you can spawn 2 full sets without despawning any totems. But there's one way that you could do that, and that's with the Iron Commander unique bow, which grants +1 to the maximum number of summoned totems for Siege Ballista per 200 dexterity. With enough dexterity and extra maximum totem scaling from nodes on the tree, you'll potentially be able to freely use Siege Ballista of Trarthus without fear of overwriting any of the totems before they've attacked. And this is going to be very strong on Hierophant in particular, as with enough totem placement speed, you should be able to get 2 sets of totems out before the first set has finished firing, allowing you to massively benefit from the more damage per totem scaling. Okay, lastly, for the gems we've seen so far, it's Wave of Conviction. We have footage and most of the gem info for this one, we're just missing the quality stat. So this version of Wave of Conviction pulses outwards from your casting location in a circle before coming back to the original casting location. Interestingly, it doesn't have any area of effect stats on the gem info, but it does have a duration. And in the skill description, it says that it damages enemies over a duration and returns, damaging enemies on the way back. Like with the normal Wave of Conviction, only one instance of the skill can be active at a time, and this also includes proxies like totems or mines. Now, because there's no area of effect listed on the gem, it would appear that duration scaling will likely scale the area with a longer duration moving out to a wider area, and a shorter duration covering a much smaller total area, before then returning back to where it started. Notably, it doesn't have any of the exposure-related stats from the original Wave of Conviction, and it converts 50% of physical damage to fire rather than having multiple different conversions. But really, this is very much a new skill. The mechanics appear to be entirely different, and if you want to go for an interesting mapper, then scaling duration on this skill might be quite fun. You may be able to get the radius to hit the entire screen. Alternatively, there might be an angle there for single target where you stack reduced and less skill effect duration modifiers so that the skill returns very quickly and deals both packets of damage close together. This way, cast speed can also potentially become a scaling vector, because usually if the duration is too long or if you have too much cast speed, you'll be overwriting your wave before it returns. And I actually really like the look of this skill. I think it will make for a fun mapper. There's just the concern there for single target damage, where if you scale the duration and therefore the area, you also nerf yourself for single target, so you'll probably need another way to solve that. Now that's it for the gems that we currently know anything about, but for the remaining 6 we only know what skills they're going to be versions of. I'm personally quite a big fan of Spectral Helix, or at least I was before it got nerfed, so I'm interested to see what that one ends up being like, and there's also Bladeful there which could be quite good. What about you? Which of the Trarthus gems are you most looking forward to? And do you see yourself playing any of the gems that have already been revealed? Let me know by commenting below. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.